Welcome to another episode of Stand on Guard. I'm your host, David Krayden, and I'm really, really happy to be continuing to talk about Bill C-293 today. It's been one of our most popular issues, and today we have Kamel El-Cheik back, my friend with the Million Person March. He's also interested in this bill. And along with Kamel, we have Lisa Miron, who is an expert on this bill from a legal perspective. And when we come back, we'll be discussing what this bill means. So we are in a very precarious position in this country. We need political change, but we also need the resolve to resist. Yes, please like the station, like the program, tell your friends and family that we're here. We get suppressed by YouTube because we talk about issues that matter. We talk about policy. We're not just here to insult the prime minister every day. Seems if you do that, you get high ratings. But
that's hard. That's hard not to do, David.
That's hard not to do is right, Kamel. But I want to get right into it here because we've done a couple of shows on this. I want to let you both know that I had a Saskatchewan farmer on after I did a show just talking about this bill. And it amazes me that it got this far. It's second reading now in the Senate. We're poised to see this thing actually pass unless we get more pushback. It amazes me it's gotten this far. It's a private member's bill. Let's remember that. This is not even government legislation per se, even though the member of parliament who introduced it is a Liberal backbencher. This is Nate Erskine Smith, which I always joke sounds like a name from an English drawing room comedy, but there's nothing funny about this bill, and it is extremely dangerous. So just we'll put up the bill again, so everybody this is it, C-293, private members bill. It's up there, and I want to go back just for a minute to the food professor's remarks about this because I found this fascinating. Because when I read the bill, I said basically the same thing. This is unmitigated state control of the economy, and of course about foodstuffs, largely meat. It's going to affect whether we can eat meat or not, whether we can pack meat or not, whether we can raise meat or not. And that's the emphasis I had when I talked about this bill. And that's what the food professor largely went on. And I said, this is a very dangerous bill because it prepares for the next pandemic, which of course can come at any time. The government says we're in a pandemic. They've tried it this year. They mused about avian flu. They mused about monkeypox. Nobody's buying it, though, of course, because they're just sick and tired of these crises.
Can you go back to that provision?
Yeah, go right ahead.
Right? Yeah, okay. So we have focused on the agricultural component, and a lot of people are really up in arms about it and keep that attitude. This is not a bill we can edit. But let's look at this. Did you notice also, in addition to the Minister of Agriculture and Agri-Food, that there's the Minister of Industry? Okay, so that's manufacturing. Okay, let's pause and examine that component. Okay, we want to keep giving people stuff to get upset about. You write your senators, you write your Danielle Smith, your Scott Mose, your Doug Ford. Okay, let's go to II. Reduce commercial activities that can contribute to pandemic risk. And then there's that comma. Let's make sure you put that back up, including animal agriculture. So including is the nudging that it's only about animal agriculture. It's already big enough that it's animal agriculture. But they get to reduce anything that's a commercial activity, right? Read it. Commercial activity that can contribute, that they say, right? Not objectively, that they say can contribute to pandemic risk. So your cars, right? Oh, any kind. This is a mandatory degrowth everywhere that you look. But so it's in addition to your animal agriculture, comma, including means everything before is also up for grabs, right? And so this is I'm going to be in charge of the economy. They get to promote commercial activities that can help reduce pandemic risk. So that's your mandatory EVs or anything else mandatory, you know, intermittent solar arrays for your power. So it could be anything. And so this is also a massive part of this provision that is not often discussed, David. Like you've got here that they're going to take the Ministry of Industry and they get to own the economy that way too. And they get to dictate what we get to buy, what gets produced, what industries fall. And if Danielle Smith hasn't considered this for oil and gas, and if Alberta hasn't considered this for oil and gas, right? Then this is really, really big. So it's your next big provision to focus on. I could give you a provision a week that we write about. And this is your provision on, you know, jigging that economy however they want and owning everything that the Ministry of Industry could possibly take part in. So that's another biggie.
What I found interesting about your analysis, Lisa, when I listened to your interview the other day, was that you've taken this really and incorporated what they're doing here with the larger globalist agenda. And this is a World Health Organization mandate, international health regulations. Most Canadians aren't even aware that we've signed on to this. And of course, last spring, you might recall, there was a huge buzz about Canada not signing on to the WHO's mandates, that we were not going to be losing or abrogating our sovereignty to the World Health Organization. We had people writing their MPs, texting their MPs, emailing their MPs, don't sign on to the World Health Organization mandate. We're not going to be part of it. And of course, we seem to pass through the crisis. But I'm reading this and I'm saying, no, we didn't. This is the same agreement through the back door, through the international health regulations, which you have described here. And there it is right there. We are agreeing, because it didn't happen in June 2024, and now it's going to happen by September 2025. We are going to be part of the World Health Organization's complete mandate program.
I need to correct you there. There's two things. There's two separate things going on. First is that we submitted amendments to those 2005 international health regulations. And in fact, what's so interesting about those amendments is they were submitted by the Biden administration. Okay, so you have an organization. Let's look at this whole globalist thing. You have an organization that President Xi appointed Tedros for, that has 89% independent funding to go by non-state actors, mostly by organizations like Bill and Melinda Gates funding it. So you have this corporate fascism in the WHO. You have President Xi muscling through Tedros, and you have Biden putting through the 2005 International Health Regulation amendments. But the 2005 regulations did go through, and those required national focal points in all of our organizations. And then you have this bill, we were talking about Erskine Smith. How did he write it? Him and his, 100 monkeys. How did he write it? It solves for the international health regulation requirements that only passed 2024, but he puts his bill in June 2022. So there's, that aspect. And then it has provisions and content from the WHO pandemic treaty that hasn't passed. Okay, so it didn't come out of thin air. It came with a purpose. And, it scratches an itch that didn't happen. If negotiations at the WHO were bona fide, we wouldn't know what the provisions would land as. If the negotiations at the WHO level were bona fide, then they would come to a close among 196 state actors. Wow, that's a lot of play, right? People who we're supposed to believe are at war everywhere, right? But, you've got Bill and Melinda Gates, you've got Tedros and Xi, and you've got Biden putting through the amendments. It's awfully cozy up there. And so if it was bona fide, that IHR amendments would pass. in June of 2024. And, we would close that pandemic treaty sometime in 25. And then Erskine-Smith would be like, oh, I have to put in my bill. But instead, his bill's in, and it deals with both things, and they're landing all at the same time.
Okay. And if you look at this bill, the preamble, which you focused on previously, the problem here is that everything is just so vague and so overreaching that this can apply to basically anything, because there's nothing is defined here. This is widespread. Would you agree with that, Lisa?
I would. So you've got like that totalitarian One Health approach, and you've got it right up there. It's the 1, 2, 3, 4th One Health approach, multi-sectoral, any sector, multidisciplinary, any discipline, collaborative. So got to be working approach that focuses on human, animal, plant, ecosystem health. That's God's green earth. But there's also that idea that we're equal to the rat in the forest or in the garbage, and the bunny and its habitat is more important than us. And the welfare interface. And the welfare interface is all your relationship with government or NGOs or stakeholders. So it's very broad. That's the whole grant of power. It's everything. You can't tell me something that Canada does with its citizens, and I'll find a way to put it in there. So that the transfer of power to this, plan, this bill, through this bill, is omnipotent. And then you're also looking at that. It governs Canadian activities. Well, what's an activity? I don't know. We're having a podcast. So I guess we're governed at home and abroad. So it's again another hint that this is globalism, because they have long-arm jurisdiction, and normal Canadian bills don't purport to try to take over the territorial laws of other countries. So here we have this long-arm jurisdiction, another clue that this is ubiquitous. So it's ubiquitous in scope, covers everything you might possibly do anywhere in the entire universe, right? Known universe.
Yeah, that's precisely what when I first looked at this bill, I said, this is dangerous. It's giving the government complete control, and of course in a crisis, and we know what this government does in a crisis, whether it's a freedom convoy crisis or it's a pandemic, it means control of our lives. This government loves to control our lives, and they will use any excuse to do that. Now, Kamel, I wanted, if you could join us here for a minute in terms of the conversation. You told me yesterday you have young Muslim students coming up to you and saying, Kamel, this bill worries us, and we need to get people worried about this bill. But why are the students telling you this?
So, first off, obviously we have a lot of connections with youth in the community and the mosques and Ottawa University and Carleton University. Obviously, we do a lot of outreach because that's what I did in the past with our scholarships in the corporations, right? So, I broke the ice and I sent this bill out, and I found students, PhD students, students with a master's, students in nursing school, doctors, they had no idea. So this bill, the way it's articulated, as Lisa Miron was saying, it's so subtle. It's the terminology is so sweet. It's for your emergency preparedness. And that's what people see at face value. But if you look inside, nobody really paid attention. So we raised the alarm bells for the past 2 months, especially when I had talks in early September with Lisa Miron. But we had action on it as soon as everybody heard we're in the second reading in the House of Commons. So we did some seminars this week with executives of the associations at University of Ottawa and Carleton. And these are aspiring doctors. I said to them, guys, if this bill passes, what you're working for right now is all at stake. I mean, and then we went into detail, and I showed them a couple of the videos that we did with Lisa Miron and her other videos where she goes in depth in the bill, and they all dropped their jaws. They didn't even know about the Great Reset book by Klaus Schwab. Now they're studying it meticulously. And so now they created an action plan. And in 2 days, I gotta hand it to these ladies, like the Zahra, Danyas and Zainab and Mireille, good kids with, oh my God, we got to do something. So in the past 2 or 3 days, they had about 200 people come to the group. They're going to do tabletop exercises in both Ottawa University, Carleton University. They're also now organizing a protest for Bill C-293. I'm like, oh, okay, well, this is going fast. Well, you know what? Well, you got our support here. So now I'm actually taking it to the hands-off our kids level. And I'm talking to the executives. And they also have a plan. Obviously, they want to be part of Remembrance Day, honoring our soldiers. So now that's the question is, we're going to honor our soldiers, buy the poppy and come with the Canadian flag. But should we have like a little note saying, thank you, lest we forget, but Bill C-293, you guys died for this, giving us our liberty. And, so now they're saying, I hope we're not being rude. We're thinking about it. Like, this is where they're at in terms of action plans. Protest, build awareness, go to the scouts, go to the youth clubs, go to the university clubs, and spread awareness. And, today I get a confirmation from one of them telling me, oh, the office is closed for the tabletop exercises. They wanted to do it on the weekend. So lots of energy, lots of momentum being built.
Yeah, and that's terrific. Every time we face Remembrance Day, it's obviously a moral dilemma whether or not politics gets involved. Unfortunately, the government has used Remembrance Day for years for political purposes. And I'm a veteran myself, and I proudly wore the uniform. And I think I have written more about vets over the years than just about anything else. And there's nothing I enjoy more on Remembrance Day than sitting down with a veteran and talking about their experiences and writing about those experiences. But I do think we need to remind Canadians that we're losing our freedom that those vets fought for. Go ahead, Lisa.
Yeah, exactly.
I absolutely love that our, newer Canadians are starting to understand the stakes. Because the tendency is that newer Canadians, vote Liberal. And so they need to be educated that the Liberal is just a globalist, and the globalist is inserting kind of a feudalism. And the globalist doesn't need our freedom. And they can have controlled economies, which they want. Up to now, we would have thought that, Canada would have been one of the best places to live. And I don't think they want us to join new Canadians, existing Canadians, all faiths. I don't think they want us to join. But what it is that under equality and under freedom, we all have the best opportunities. And under feudalism, we don't. And one of the things, I'm just so amazed, Kamel, that you're able to generate this kind of interest, and bravo to all these beautiful students who are engaging. That's a new level, right? That's a new level, the university students. And then if they're able to go university to university to spread the word on Bill C-293, this is not a future for young people. I read yesterday that the area and place they want to introduce digital ID to first for uptake is at the university of level. And they want to do that because they're going to make all services interoperable through the digital ID. So that interoperability means that, you won't be able to get your food, you won't be able to maneuver order your courses without your digital ID. That is coming up on an upcoming Substack. Be sure you look at lawyerlisa.substack.com. So engaging with the youth on the dangers of Bill C-293 or CBDC or digital ID, and educating them on what the possibilities are. Like, they just grew up with technology. So they expect that these techno-savvy people are just going to give up their freedoms and let themselves be governed by this new type of view of society, right? Which is that we don't have freedoms, and we're inverting ourselves into an access-based society. So we used to be in a freedom-based society, and then we'll have to present my QR code. And so all the places I could legally go to before, get on a bus, a plane, go to a restaurant, shop. I have to have the right access. So we're turning into an access-based society, and our biggest thinkers aren't talking about it.
Yeah,
No.
and you know what, to add to that, Lisa, these students, it was supposed to be an hour and a half seminar, and I was taking questions. We started at 6 o'clock p.m. We finished at 10:30 p.m. at night. They wouldn't let me go. They asked questions about digital ID. Oh, that's what they did in COVID. So they linked it to the social distancing, the questions these kids have. And I said, I really have to go. And they didn't want me to go. So it just extended and extended, and they were taking notes. And now it's like all weekend they've been working in an urgent fashion. Now, what I find disturbing is I'm doing outreach in the churches and the mosques, and these are supposed to be leaders and community, we're talking 50, 60-year-old leaders that are celebrated in terms of, what they have in terms of education. And most, I'd have to say, don't know that it's going on. And they don't have the urgency because they are completely oblivious to Bill C-293. And I find that incredibly disheartening. So I am going to a few more churches today to do that outreach. I was at a church yesterday as well.
I did my show yesterday on digital ID. Blacklock's report broke the story earlier this week. I was happy to see my old friend Michelle Rempel-Garner, member of Parliament for Calgary, Nose Hill, get her teeth into this. I'm not always happy with Michelle's work. I'm not happy with what the government's doing with C-63 or with the opposition, the official opposition, saying they're going to have an alternative bill. We need to kill this bill. It is as bad, not worse, than C-293. The Online Harms Act is odious. But this is how this government feels about free speech, though. This is how this government feels about freedom. But before I forget, I know you have talked extensively, Lisa, about these NFPs, and I think I have them spelled out. Now that stands for
you don't have the right document up, but no, you've got the amendments up.
Yeah, well, this is why I have it up, though, is because the government of Canada has cut and pasted exactly what the World Health Organization documents. They've taken it exactly what they've done with other, just like they've done with the Online Harms Act. They've taken this stuff from globalist documents and they put it into Canadian documents. This is exactly what they've done. Okay, but can you walk us through?
So you don't have the right document up. So is it okay if I share my screen, or is that impossible? Okay, I'll just explain. In 2005, the international health regulations required national focal points be set up in everybody's country. We're talking 2005. We're not talking about any amendment.
NFP is national focal point, because people need to know that.
And so every country needed to have an NFP. Think of that as the satellite office of the WHO. And I wanted, what the purpose for me looking for this information was that I didn't think Public Health Canada was acting like Public Health Canada, right? Now, there was all kinds of things, public healthy things, like being able to work out, being able to be outside, being able to go for a walk, they weren't doing public healthy things. And I decided, you know what? They're not acting like us. They're not acting like they're in our best interest. I betcha they're not. I'm going to prove it. So it took me a very long time. I knew what I would find. I knew what it would look like when I found it. And in fact, these are these national focal points. So when I found the national focal point requirement, it's a legal requirement of something that passed in 2005. And I said, well, why can't I find Canada's national focal point? So then I went and I decided to research, and I found it on Brave, actually, or DuckDuckGo, and I found it on a pharma site, and they listed all 196 focal points for the world. And when I got to Canada's focal point, imagine that the address was in Washington, D.C. Imagine that Canada's focal point address was in Washington, D.C. at an organization called the Pan American Health Organization. And imagine that, I was like, what? Pan American Health Organization, they describe themselves as the WHO. So our focal point satellite office of the WHO was in Washington, D.C. at another essential office of the WHO. And it listed in the health portfolio 5. Public Health Canada, so I'd done it. I knew it. They're a satellite office of the WHO. Health Canada. See, doctors don't know this. Lawyers don't know this, right? What are the chances the public knows this? Health Canada, satellite office of WHO. And by the way, in Bill C-293, it hands all the powers of governing Canada to the satellite offices of the WHO.
Huh.
Boom. Okay, what else? The Canadian Food Inspection Agency. Oh, does that bird have flu? Oh, we better kill it, right? What else? The Patented Price Review Board. How much are we paying for all those vaccines? How much does Canada have to pay for remdesivir, right? It's like racketeering, really. It's like racketeering. And then the last one, health research. So, what we're funding. So all you doctors taking it up for Public Health Canada, all you Canadians lining up for Public Health Canada, just remember, Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation and the rest of them, Gavi, CEPI, World Bank, all of those, globalist institutions now fund 89%, 87 to 89% of the funding of the WHO, right? So corporate interest, right? And President Xi pulled the trigger insisting on Tedros, right? So possible CCP interference, right? And did they tell us during COVID that they were a satellite office of the WHO? Why'd I have to go looking for it? Why did you hear it first on David Krayden's, right? Why did you have to go find it? So for the US, there's a few, there's 4, but I'll tell you just one. CDC, right? CDC. So when the CDC says, oh, yeah, RSV shot 6 months, 76 vaccines for American children, we approve safe CDC, right? That I want you to go, what? Look back at your pandemic. And if that transparency, if you had to find out it in 2024 by watching David Krayden, right, and listening to me, right, that the CDC and Public Health Agency are satellite offices of the WHO, where's the transparency? Justice must be seen to be done. It's up to them to prove that they're not corrupted, right, at this point.
Yes.
And then they want in Bill C-293 the control of Canada. So it's a coup. It's a coup. It's a full out, it's conspiracy. And you take that word theory and you blow it up in so many pieces that it never reassembles. This is the purest proof of conspiracy. Now, the lens. We need to expose the NFPs, who they are, in every country, empower every citizen of the world to, hey, what's their NFPs? I have a post that identifies all of them. They change the URLs periodically. They literally do that. They change the ending of the URLs. And so I have to sometimes go and update them. And, I can't do that all the time. But you will have to. They change their URLs. Canada's NFP and the US NFP run out of the same address. Kind of cute. So it's not
incredible.
globalism. In that Bill C-293, it allows the Minister of Health Canada, there's your Darth Vader for the WHO.
Oh my God.
Right? He does the plan and he appoints from Public Health Canada, right? There's, I don't know, pick your bad guy. I don't know who you want
Stay
to pick
home,
there.
stay safe. We're in this together, right?
Right. He picks that person and then hands them powers, duties, and functions that are also not defined, right? And then the ultimate globalist indication in there, right? So remember, it's territorial. We got global health equity. We're going to go around and vaccinate the world. Canada's going to pay for that and go do that. There's your financial GDP. Whoa. Okay. We're going to reforest the world. That is, that's the same thing as taking people off their land around the world and sticking them in cities. We're going to reforest, right? We're going to reforest the world. Global reforestation, all for climate change, right?
Funny, in the Great Reset.
Yeah. Right? Global problems hide the pillars of the globalist state. You can't disagree on climate change because it's a pillar of the globalist state. You can't disagree on pandemic on anything because it's a pillar of the global state. This is just, a pure. The provision, that is the grossest, is that, they get to import through cooperative measure. Not define what's a cooperative measure. I agree to go on this podcast, or I have a memo, or with you, or a phone call. What's a cooperative measure? With anybody who's in charge of this plan, the dictator, right? Dictator, we'll just use him, dictator at the top, and foreign governments, NGOs, UN, WHO, and then any that cooperative measure also in here.
So Bill C-63, so Bill 293 would be the military force of the coup you're talking about to implement Bill C-63, like a David Krayden or Lisa Miron or our Million People March every year. This is how we're going to implement.
I read this, I saw nobody understanding it, and I kept sort of hearing this call, like, you've got to come out, Lisa. You got to talk about this, and it doesn't matter what the stakes are, because there's 100% silence on this, and I'll never regret it.
Yeah. No, we need to speak out, because as we see here, this bill has passed second reading. It's not yet at third reading. It's at the committee stage. And I, for the life of me, couldn't find out which committee. It could even be the Public Accounts Committee. I can't ascertain as of this morning where this bill is going to go.
It'll be a health committee. It'll be a health committee, and it'll be stacked. Like, I'm sorry.
Well, have you offered to be a witness, Lisa?
I could be a witness. For sure, I could be a witness.
Because you need to be there. And people who are opposed to this bill need to be there. And if there's any opposition from the conservative senators there, I think they're probably, the one conservative senator I'm still anyway close to is Senator Pamela Wallin. I think you get some interest from Pamela on this. But as I was saying to Kamel yesterday, the Senate is such a witch's brew right now in terms of there being no organization. There's about 5 different parties represented, ad hoc parties. All of the liberal, small L, large L, liberal senators owe their allegiance entirely to Justin Trudeau. They will do exactly what Justin Trudeau says. So we're really in a very difficult position in stopping this bill. Are you optimistic at all, Lisa, that we can do something to stop it?
You know what? You can't find out about this level of tyranny and people not waking up. So I have several asks. Number one, convincing Daniel Smith or any other premier to go to court. It's not mere, like, they have to understand the NFP. They have to understand this is a transfer of power. They have to understand that this is a coup. They have to understand that it's not editable and it's a full-on power grab. Okay, so any premier can challenge this, because the jurisdiction, of the Constitution is at stake in terms of, the BNA, what the province gets to do versus the federal government. And this isn't even the federal government, is it? It's a satellite office of the WHO. So it's a satellite office of perhaps President Xi, or even perhaps even Bill and Melinda Gates and corporate interests. So it's a possible fascism power grab, right? But you can read it. So and decide for yourself and listen to my reasoning. But so one, every premier can go to court now. Number two, how about the Conservative Party, right? Really come out against this bill. It's hard. I understand that right now they're leading in the polls, and so it's their election to lose. And what that means is we have to grassroots educate as many people as possible so that we can enable the Conservative Party to come out against it. What's people always say, well, Pierre's not talking about it. It's his election to lose, right? He wants to get in there. He wants to win. The Conservative Party wants to win, and then they can, move past these bills and decimate them. The problem is, because it's a WHO conspiracy, and don't tell me it's not, Eric Smith and 100 Monkeys didn't come up with this. No, he didn't. It didn't land so perfectly in October of 2024, now November 24. So if we educate the population in such a significant level, and I have some ideas about that, then the recall motion could be, right? So that we recall Bill 63 and 293, right? And we want to topple the government with that motion, We recall it. We kill that bill, even if it's over at the Senate. We make a motion. We kill Bill 293. We kill Bill 63. We call it back. Like there's obviously, and whatever he does, he must not, if he suspends Parliament or we call an election, we cannot let the functioning of the Senate continue, right? We cannot let, bills continue to be voted upon. Because, the WHO can declare they're fake. I can't believe that, whatever the acronym they picked was fake, PHEI, of international concern, some health pandemic of international concern. They get and then our ability to go and challenge this legislation, if our rights, if we're expropriated, if we lose our meat, if farmers lose their land, we can't go and challenge while we're under martial law of sorts. So, when I look at Justin Trudeau's smug little face this whole 2 years, I've always thought he's got something in his pocket that he knows about, because he has no sense of accountability whatsoever. It's never about the masses. It's always agenda oriented. And we've got NDP mashup, propping this up. I think people have to really understand. I've gone to a few live events, and I'm going to be live again this Thursday in Kitchener. And I have people saying they're using my, or it's a group that created this one-click letter, and they're printing it up 50 at a time. They're going to malls. They're going to schools, and they're talking to strangers. Have you heard about Bill C-293? And then they give them what it is all about. And they say, would you sign this letter? And they get the signature and the postal code, and they mail those letters en masse to the Senate. And they're doing dawn to dusk. Okay, this is what retirees are doing. They're going dawn to dusk to talk to strangers in their communities. We educate so we can empower the Conservatives to bring this forth, right? So I say, you start with your city councillors. You go from the bottom up. You go your city councillors and your mayors. You educate them. You go your school boards and your teachers, right? You don't have a kid in school? Doesn't matter. Go to those school boards and the teachers, right? You have industry associations that you're a part of, right? You want to print up, dress like a cricket, stand someplace, because this is the cricket bill, eh?
Yes.
Some people, Lisa mentioned, some people are sending crickets in the mail to make a point on the templates.
Well, this opposition so far from all of you and from the food professor has actually prompted a response from the bill's author. He put a little short up on YouTube. But at the very end of the short, he does say he's open to amendments,
including activities with high-risk species. And that's it. That is the apparent end of animal agriculture as we know it. And here I thought I'd made it pretty clear in the House that I was open to reasonable amendments. There are amendments, I have no doubt, that ought to be made to add things, to remove things, to adjust language. I'm certainly open to amending the legislation based on the details. I said I was open to that amendment too. Again, I don't propose that it's perfect, and I would expect amendments are going to be forthcoming. And I want to say amendments should be forthcoming. Make sure that we, at all times, focus on what is best on the science when it comes to prevention.
Well, as soon as we hear on the science from a liberal, I shut my ears. But so he says he's open to amendments. We have one more chance to do that at the committee phase. But I like what you said in terms of bringing a premier in as a witness. I think that might be the last.
I want to bring a premier to go to court to kill this bill on jurisdictional basis. You ask your premiers to kill this bill. They can kill this bill. They can go to court.
Okay. Yeah.
On a constitutional question and kill it. And then it's a perpetual emergency act. One last thing, we have an emergency act, right? We do. And there's a threshold to get in, and there's an offboarding process. And you can't just get in for anything. Well, this bill initiates on anything that could cause, very tenuous, the risk of, in the future, a pandemic. So it's not like we enter into this, pandemic prevention at a time where there's, some deaths and hospitals are overwhelmed. And no, it just starts immediately on the basis that something in the future could cause the risk of. Wow. Right? So it's not like everybody's like, okay, this is going to come out at the time of the next pandemic. No, you drop this and it starts. It's literally drafted like that.
Yes, yes.
You need
So
to
I
take
don't
the
think there's-
needle because I need to be safe because you need to take the needle. Yeah, that kind of mentality is
No, it's like, you know what? Climate change is a really bad thing. And so we have to stop right now because of extreme weather events. We're going to have to get in there right now. And, you know,
like
it
they
could
did to
cause
Germany with the
risk of-
energy wind, and so they were in the cold all winter. It was a very cold winter last year, and they needed to use fossil fuels again because there was an emergency. You know, seniors were freezing to death in Germany.
Well, I think, Lisa, what you've mentioned here today, I think, is groundbreaking in terms of, yes, getting this bill not stopped at the committee level, but by legal means with a premier who can't stop it. I think that's the only hope we have of getting this legislation stopped in the current Senate, which is crazy. These people have gone berserk in the Senate, and I don't think they're going to see reason otherwise. But you've given me reason for optimism today. So I want to thank you both, Kamel, my old friend, Million Person March, for joining me today. And we are at a time, Lisa. And it's Lisa Miron. I mispronounced her name. Go ahead. You've got the last word.
Okay. You know what? We're not going to lose if we have faith that we have this information for a purpose, and it's not to be afraid. It's to speak out and take action. And like every great journey, you do not know how you're going to win. But if you sit on your tutu, you're not going to. Let's get out there. Let's move this information. And we don't know what Davids we're bringing in to take down Goliath. This is where we're at. Have faith.
Yeah.
Well, that's as it's Sunday, and it's so many people are going off to church, and very, very shortly. Thank you for saying that. Elisa's information is in the description. Other information is there, including how you can contribute to Kamel El-Cheik's Million Person March campaign. Hands Off Our Kids organization. The information is there. Please support Kamel and Lisa. But Kamel, you do so much work. You're doing it all on your own, and you need everybody's support. But thank you so much for joining me, both of you today, Lisa and Kamel. Let's stay in touch, and let's keep praying for the safety, security, and freedom of Canada, which is continuing to be at risk with this Trudeau government. Thank you, everybody, for joining us today on Stand on Guard. God bless you on this Sunday, and we'll be back again tomorrow with more.